But okay, let's begin then. So we are going to start with vectors. So let's start with vectors. अच्छा, vectors क्या हैं? सबसे पहले we need to understand vectors क्या होते हैं. So let's say you've got a line here that's like this. You've got this point A, and let's say you've got this point B, and you're going from A to B. So we are going from A to B like this. Okay, this is a straight line like this. Now vectors basically होते हैं, it's something that has two things. It's represented by two things. One is the magnitude and the other is direction. अब ये A से हमने B पे जाना है. This is a vector that we represent like this. That's AB vector. Okay, A is the starting point. We say A is the starting point. It's the starting point, and B is the end point. इस vector का मतलब क्या है कि हम A से start करते हैं और हम B पे end करते हैं. How do we know the direction? We have this arrow here. हम A से B पे जा रहे हैं. Okay, so that's how we represent vectors. That's the notation that we use for vectors, AB, and we have that arrow on top of this. That means starting point and the end point. Sana, this is our fourth day here, as in it's our fourth week. तो हर week हमारी यहाँ पे इस free group के अंदर तो एक class होती है, in which we cover the main topic. We've done coordinate geometry, we've done trigonometry, and we've done mensuration. Today we're doing vectors. Okay, Walaikum assalam, Jerry. Okay, so we have, yeah, so this is how we represent a vector, right? A से B पर हम जा रहे हैं. So this is what it means. A से start कर रहे हैं, A से start करके we're reaching a point B. अच्छा, इसके बारे में ना you already know a few things already. So जिस तरह हम coordinates को represent करते थे ना coordinate geometry के अंदर, if I were to draw these axes here like this, let's say we've got a y-axis here and I've got a got an x-axis here as well. Got an x-axis here, and this is x, this is y. Basically, जो आपके पास coordinates होते थे ना a किसी भी point के in coordinate geometry, हम उनको as vectors भी represent कर सकते हैं. So if let's say this point A had these coordinates that were 1 and 3, we've got 1 on the x-axis here, we've got 3 on the three on the y-axis. And similarly for the point B, let's say we have let's say this point here, that's B. Coordinates here are 5 and 5. Okay, so let's say B के coordinates are 5 and 5. Okay, अब उसी चीज को हम as vectors भी represent कर सकते हैं. तो सबसे पहले तो let's think about this. AB vector, ये AB vector किस तरह से represent होएगा? We have to go from A to B. We have to start at A and then end at B. तो हमें कितने units x-axis पे move करने हैं? We have to move 4 units on the x-axis, right? We have to go 4 units to the x-axis. That's 4 units x-axis के ऊपर. Vertically कितना move करना होएगा? We have to go 2 units up, right? Because originally we were on 3, 3 से हमें 5 पे जाना है. So vertically we have to move 4 units, 2 units like this, right? 2 units in y, exactly. So इस vector को हम किस तरह से represent कर देंगे? इसको हम इस तरह से column vector form के अंदर लिखेंगे. And we will say this is vector 4 and 2. अभी जो ऊपर वाला component होता है इस vector के अंदर, that's the x component, right? And this other component is called the y component. अभी आपको क्या बताते हैं कि आप horizontally कितना move कर रहे हो? So you're moving 4 units horizontally and you're moving 2 units vertically. अब remember, x-axis के ऊपर right side पे we consider to be positive, left side we consider to be negative. अगर हम left पे जा रहे होते we will say it's negative. अगर हम right पे जा रहे होते we will say it's positive. Y-axis के ऊपर if we go above, if we go upwards, that's positive. If we go downwards, that's negative, right? So we have both positive here because हम x-axis के ऊपर right side पे move कर रहे हैं और y-axis के ऊपर we're moving downwards. Okay, so that's how we represent a vector in this form. It's called the column vector form. इसको हम इस तरह से represent कर रहे होते हैं. Okay, Walaikum assalam, Aisha. So yeah, very good, Jerry and Aisha. That's what we're doing here. Now we can also represent these coordinates. ये जो हमारे पास coordinates हैं, यहाँ पे A के coordinates हैं और B के coordinates हैं. इन coordinates को ना हम vectors की form में भी represent कर रहे होते हैं. अब vectors की form में हम किस तरह से इसको समझते हैं? Let's say you got the origin here. So origin यहाँ पे, ठीक है. अब इन coordinates का क्या मतलब है? ये 1 और 3 क्या represent कर रहे हैं? 1, 3 का मतलब ये है कि to reach point A, you have to go 1 unit right from the origin, and then you have to go 3 units up from the origin. So origin से A पे पहुंचने के लिए what do you have to do? You go 1 unit right and then you go 3 units up. Basically A की position किस तरह से represent हो रही है? Position of A is basically 1 unit to the right and then 3 unit upwards from the origin. इसको हम इस तरह से लिख सकते हैं, this is OA vector, vector OA. कि O से यानी कि origin से हम A पे कैसे पहुंच सकते हैं? We have to go 1 unit right and then we have to go 3 units up. That's called OA. इस चीज को हम कहते हैं position vector of A. Similarly, we can do something similar for the point B as well, right? B को हम क्या कहेंगे? B के coordinates क्या थे? 5 and 5. तो उन्हीं coordinates को तो 5 and 5 हैं, we can represent them in this vector form. We can say position vector of B, that is OB, is equal to 5 and 5, right? एक तो हमने देखा कि AB vector जो था ये किस तरह से represent कर सकते थे 4 और 2 से, right? That's what we saw here. और ये जो points हैं यहाँ पे इस coordinates के ऊपर आ रहे हैं इस vector के, there are A and B. उन points की position vector को कैसे represent कर सकते हैं? O से A पे कैसे पहुंचना है? O से A पे पहुंचने के लिए that's 1 3. O से B पे कैसे पहुंचना है? That's 5 and 5. तो basically जो भी आपके coordinates होते हैं उनको अगर vector form के अंदर लिख दो, इसको हम कहते हैं position vectors of these points. अब इसके अंदर आपको एक important चीज यहाँ पे पता होनी चाहिए, and that's the relationship between this vector AB, the vector AB, and the points where this vector is coming from. This vector is coming from the point A and B. A और B को यूज करके आपने AB बनाया. अब इसका तरीका क्या होता है? आपके पास कोई भी इस तरह से वेक्टर है ना AB, we can write it in using its position vectors in this form. कि दूसरे वेक्टर का जो पोजीशन वेक्टर है, जो दूसरे वेक्टर का पोजीशन वेक्टर है B का, जो एंड पॉइंट का पोजीशन वेक्टर है, एंड पॉइंट क्या है यहाँ पे? एंड पॉइंट इज B here. उसका जो पोजीशन वेक्टर है, we subtract from that the position vector of the first point. That's A. That's minus OA, right? That's minus OA. Yes, Aisha, you're correct as well. That's correctly. That's exactly right. So you can also write it that way. We will talk about that in a couple of minutes. That's coming from the triangle law. लेकिन उसको हम यहाँ पे directly इस तरह लिख सकते हैं कि position vectors को directly लिखें. AB vector is equal to OB minus OA. बस अक्सर क्या होता है, आपको coordinates दिए होते हैं, coordinates को use करके आपने इस तरह के vector figure out करना होता है. हम position vectors की form में इसको इस तरह कर सकते हैं. Whatever is the second vector, second point, उसका position vector minus the position vector of the first point. Now we can generalize this to anything. So let's say we have, vector PQ. How can we write this in the form in terms of the position vectors of P and Q? We will say this is OQ minus OP. It's OQ minus OP. Let's say we had MN. We would say this is ON minus OM. Right? If we had QP, that will be OP minus OQ. So whatever is the second point, उसके position vector में से minus कर देंगे first point position vector. Okay, so that's an important thing that you will need to be aware of. Okay, now let's talk about another thing. So एक तो ये चीज हमारे पास होगी कि किस तरह से आप vectors को relate करते हो with the coordinate system, जो coordinate geometry में हम करते होते थे. We have these points A और B, इनके जो coordinates होते हैं x और y coordinates, उनको हम इस तरह से position vector के फॉर्म में लिख सकते हैं, इनको हम position vectors कहते हैं, और उनको यूज करके फिर हम बना सकते हैं इस तरह की फॉर्म. Okay, all right. Now let's say you have a vector like this. You have this vector that's AB. You're going from A to B. Okay, and then you're going from B to C. Then you're going from B to C. So you have AB and BC. So आप A से B पे जा रहे हो और फिर आप B से C पे जा रहे हो. That is what you're doing. Now, what you want to do is, you want to see what happens in this whole journey. आपका स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट क्या था? अब इन दोनों वेक्टर्स को रिप्रेजेंट कैसे करेंगे? द फर्स्ट वेक्टर इज ए बी, दैट्स व्हाट वी स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम. ए से बी पे जा रहे थे और फिर हमने क्या किया, बी से सी पे चले गए. तो essentially what we're doing is we started at A से start करके हम B पे गए, फिर B से start करके we reached the point C. Okay. Now, what is the overall effect of this whole thing? What is the overall effect of this whole thing? हम पूरा क्या करें, इस पूरी जर्नी में हमारे पास क्या हो रहा है? We are going from A to C. So AB and BC, this is equivalent to saying it's AC like this. It's AC like this. So basically, vectors के अंदर ना जो vectors को addition होती है ना, हम यहाँ पे क्या कहेंगे? This vector AB plus the vector BC, this can be represented by the vector AC, right? Now, of course, there's a background to this. ये क्यों होता है, कैसे होता है? But since it's a review class, I'm not going to go into the details about that. I'm just going to remind you of the concepts that you need to be aware of. And I hope आप लोगों ने इसको proper logic के साथ किया होगा कि क्यों होता है ऐसे. But that's for another time when we have time when we have longer classes. In a review class, I'm just going to tell you okay exactly क्या चीज concept आपको पता होनी चाहिए. So AB आपने add किया, BC के अंदर what do you get? You get AC as the result. A से आप C पे जा रहे हो directly. Because that's what is happening. A से start करके आप C पे पहुंच गए हो. It's equivalent to saying you're going from A to C like this. अच्छा, यहाँ पे आप एक notice करोगे एक pattern that is appearing here, and that is ये जो first vector का जो last point है, ending point, और ये जो second vector का जो first point है, they are the same. Since they are the same, हम ये पहले और लास्ट आखिरी पॉइंट को A और C को इसको हम यहाँ पे राइट साइड पे लग देते हैं, that's AC. So अगर इसी पैटर्न को आप देखो, it's the same thing as saying अगर आप PQ आपके पास होता और एक और वेक्टर होता that was QR, you could have added these two vectors to get, since these two are the same, Q और Q यहाँ पे same है, तो आप क्या कह सकते थे? You would say this is the same thing as saying PR vector. ये आपका PR vector वहां से आ जाता. Okay? Because these are the same. इसका मतलब क्या है? आपने P से स्टार्ट किया, आप Q पे आ गए, Q से आप R पे चले गए, तो ओवरऑल इफेक्ट क्या है? You're starting at P and then you're ending at R, so that's what you get, PR vector. Okay. Walaikum assalam, Ayan. Okay, so Asim can't hear me. Can somebody please confirm if you can still hear me? Is there any lag, or is this okay? Is there any lag in my voice? Okay, thank you for confirming, Bahir. So that is what okay, good, thank you. So that is what happens, right? Addition के अंदर आपको एक ये rule पता होना चाहिए, एक आपको position vectors वाला rule पता होना चाहिए, that we did here. Position vectors वाला rule, this is important. Then you have to remember this rule that is for addition, that you add P, Q, and QR like this. When can you do that? Only when these two things are the same. Okay. अच्छा, अब इसी तरह सब थोड़ा लिखते हैं यहाँ पे. Let's say NM plus MR. What do you get from that? Since these are the same, you get NR from that. You get NR as the result. Okay. अच्छा, we could extend this to three vectors as well. For example, you have MN plus NA plus AB. Now think about this. What are you doing? You're starting at M, and you're going to N. N से फिर आप कहाँ चले गए? A पे चले गए, और फिर A से कहाँ चले गए? आप B पे चले गए. So essentially, if you look at it overall, what is happening? You started at M, and then you ended up at B. But again, it's important to consider कि ये जो corresponding आपके पास जो points हैं, so this इसका last point, पहले वाले vector का last point, और next vector का first point, they are the same. फिर उसी की तरह से इसका जो last point है और उसके अगले वाले का next point है, they are the same. Only then you can say you can apply this rule, and this turns out to be MB like this. Okay, we come up with this addition is the house. Okay, so that's the other rule that you need to know of in simple vectors. Okay, any questions on this? Any problems with this? Anyone? Any confusions? Any confusions, anyone? Okay, good. Let's move on. अच्छा, अब इसी तरह से ना हमारे पास एक चीज होती है that we call negative vectors. So let's say we got this vector AB. This is A, this is B, and we said this was I don't remember what exactly it was. This was 2 and 3, or probably 3, 2. So let's say this is the vector that we have, the x component, the y component. You're moving 3 units to the right, and you're moving 2 units up, right? So let's define this like this. This is the vector AB. Okay. अच्छा, अब इसी को अगर आप opposite कर दो, what about the vector BA? The vector BA. So now what you're saying is, आप A से B पे जाने के बजाय you're starting at B and you're ending at A. अब B से A पे जा रहे हो, right? आपने उल्टा जाना है, ठीक है? अब B से A पे जाएंगे तो क्या होएगा? You have to go 3 units to the left. 3 units आपको left पे जाना पड़ेगा. पहले आप right पे जा रहे थे और ऊपर जा रहे थे. Now you have to go 3 units left. Left पे जाने का मतलब क्या है? X axis पे आप left पे जा रहे हो, that's negative, that's -3. फिर आप क्या कर रहे हो? You're going 2 units down, so that's 2 units like this. That's going to be -2. तो जब आपका BA vector होगा, that's the opposite vector. That's going to be like this, -3 and -2. Exactly over here, that's correct. -3 and -2. यहाँ से आपको एक बात पता चली कि if you have this vector AB, that's the same thing as saying it's -BA. तो अगर आप उनको reverse कर दो, अपने आप vectors को direction reverse कर दो सिर्फ, you get this negative sign there. For example, you had PQ vector. That's the same thing as saying -QP. उसकी direction opposite होगी, तो यहाँ पे एक negative sign लगा देते हो, and it's going in the other direction now. Everything else is the same. So आपकी direction उल्टी होगी है, यहाँ पे आपने minus लगा दिया. Okay, so these are called negative vectors. Similarly, MN and NP, these are negative vectors of each other. एक दूसरे का नेगेटिव है. जब आप माइनस लगाते हो, आपकी डायरेक्शन चेंज हो जाती है. ओके, सो दैट्स द नेक्स्ट थिंग दैट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड हियर. नेगेटिव वेक्टर्स किस तरह से आते हैं. अच्छा, अब इन वेक्टर्स के बारे में हमें कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें पता होनी चाहिए. हमारे पास अगर ये वेक्टर है ए बी वेक्टर, we should be able to find the magnitude of a vector. So magnitude of a vector. Magnitude of a vector क्या होता है? It's basically the distance between the points A and B. इसकी length, इसकी A और B की length आपने find करनी. AB line जो है इसकी length find करनी. Okay? AB line की length find करनी. Remember what did we say? AB vector क्या है? It's 3 units on the right and then 2 units up. That's what the AB vector is. तो इसकी length क्या होगी? Let's call this X, or we can call this the magnitude of AB, जिसको हम इस तरह से represent करते हैं. AB vector उसी तरह से रखा, उसके साइड पे you've got 2 vertical lines like this. इसको हम कहते हैं magnitude of that vector. ठीक है? अब magnitude का फॉर्मूला क्या होता है? It's square root of x square plus y square. That's just coming from Pythagoras. You've got the base here, you've got the perpendicular here, it's a right angle here. आपने hypotenuse find करना है. Pythagoras लगा के you get x square plus y square, यानी x axis पे जो भी था उसको square किया, plus y axis पे जो भी था उसको square किया, and then you took the square root of that. That's the magnitude of x and y. What do you get from this? You get 3 square plus 2 square, and the square root of that, and that is going to be 13. Square root of 13. This is the magnitude of this vector. Okay? The magnitude of this vector that Buhair is telling me, that turns out to be 3.6 something. Okay? So that's how you calculate the magnitude of a vector. Magnitude hota kya hai? It's the length of the vector. It's the length of the vector. Distance between A and B. That's what it represents. ठीक है? Magnitudes किसी भी vector का हम इस तरह से figure out कर सकते हैं. अच्छा. Then we need to know about addition and subtraction and scalar multiplication of vectors. So for instance, you've got this vector. Let's call this vector P. इससे हमने क्या represent किया हुआ है? So let's say this vector P is 5 and 4. There's another vector. Let's call that Q. And this is -3 and 4. We've got these 2 vectors. Okay. What you want to do is we want to find P plus Q. इन दोनों को add करना. How do you add vectors? You just add corresponding components. You just add corresponding components. इन दोनों vectors को add करना है. x component of this plus the x component of this, what do you get? You get 5 minus 3. Y component of this plus the y component of this, that's just 4 plus 4, and that's the addition, right? So you get 2 and 8 here. ठीक है? इसी तरह से you can do multiplication. Vectors multiply नहीं हो सकते. You cannot say 2, 4 and 3, 7. Not at this point. अभी हमें नहीं पता. We will see this in A levels later on. इसको हम कहते हैं dot product of this. इनको कर सकते हैं multiply. There's another way to do this. इसके दो तरीके होते हैं. But let's skip that for now. हमें vector multiplication का भी पता होना जरूरी नहीं है. For now, all we need to know about is कि scalar numbers, कोई numbers आपके पास हैं वो किस तरह से multiply हो सकते हैं इसके साथ. For example, what about 3 times p? 3 को आप p को आप 3 से कैसे multiply करोगे? You will say that's 3 into 5 and 4. Now, what happens is 3 is multiplied by both the components. 3 is multiplied by 5 and 3 is also multiplied by 4. दोनों से multiply हो रहा है. ठीक है? It's not like a fraction. ये नहीं है कि fraction तब multiply करो 5 over 4 तो वो क्या हो जाएगा? It becomes 15 over 4. That's not what happens here. It multiplies by both the components, right? दोनों components से multiply होगा. So then you get 3 into 5, that is 15. 3 into 4, that is 12. So that's exactly what we get to here. That's 15 and 12. That's the vector 3p. Okay. So multiplication, addition, इसी तरह होती है. Now let's say you had to find something like this. You had to find 4b minus 2q. How do you find this? You say it's 4 multiplied by 5, 4 minus 2 multiplied by q vector is minus 3 and 4. Now you first do the multiplication. Multiplication कर लेते हैं. 4 into 5 and 4. 4 into 5 is 20. 4 into 4 is 16. Minus what? Minus 2 into minus 3, which is minus 6. 2 into 4, that is 8. अब ये आपने subtraction कर देनी है. Subtraction कैसे होएगी? 20 minus minus 6. 20 minus minus 6, that means 20 plus 6, which becomes 26. And 16 minus 8, that becomes 8. So this is the result. This is 4b minus 2q, that's 26 and 8. So that's how you do simple calculations on vectors like this, addition, subtraction, and things like that. Okay, is this clear to everyone? Any issues with this? Any problems with this? Okay, good. So this is another thing that you need to know of here. Achha. One of the concepts that you need to be aware of, that is parallel vectors. Parallel vectors क्या होते हैं? हम कैसे prove करते हैं that two vectors are parallel? और अगर two vectors parallel हैं, how can we use that to work out something else? So let's say you've got two vectors like this. You've got two vectors like this. You've got one vector here. That's AB, let's say. You've got another vector that is MN. So I've got two vectors. So let me make it a bit shorter. Yeah, so we've got two vectors like this. This is A, this is B. So I'm talking about the vector AB. We've got M and N here. Now you say these two vectors are parallel. इनको हम कहते हैं parallel vectors. इसको हम ये भी कह सकते हैं direction दोनों की same है. They have the same direction, right? And we will discuss another case here. जब हमारे पास collinear आते हैं points, उनमें भी we apply something similar. But let me just explain this first. Let's say हमारे पास AB vector. AB vector. So AB vector यहाँ पे हमारे पास होता है 2 and 3. So we're going let's do the other way around, 3 and 2. We're going 3 units right, 3 units right, and then 2 units up. Okay, that's what we have there. So what about MN? So let's say we are going about 9 units to the right, and we're going 6 units up. So दोनों vectors क्या होंगे? AB is going to be 3 and 2. MN vector is going to be 9 and 6. 9 on the 9 on the x-axis, and 6 on the y-axis. So that's 9 and 6. Okay. Now, how do we prove that these two vectors are parallel? So let's say we are asked to prove that these two vectors are parallel, right? Well, that's correct. That's very good. But let's say the question was, prove that AB and MN are parallel. AB and MN are parallel to each other. How do we do that? How do we prove that two vectors are parallel? So इसका क्या तरीका होएगा? So there are multiple methods basically, right? So one possibility is कि आप इनकी बस ratio figure out कर लो. So जो भी आपके पास ये components हैं, find the ratio between them. 3/2 की ratio निकाल लो, right? So this is 3/2. What do you get here? X और Y components की ratio निकालें. What is that? That's 3/2. That turns out to be 1.5. ये 1.5 आ गई ratio. X और Y components की. Do the same thing in the other one. 9 and 6. 9 और 6 की ratio निकाल लो. 9/6. This ratio also turns out to be 1.5. If these two ratios are the same, if they're equal, that means these two vectors are parallel. That's one way to think about this, right? अगर वो same आती हैं, they're parallel. दूसरा तरीका क्या हो सकता है? Corresponding components की ratio निकाल लो. So this 9 and this 3, and this 6 and this 2. इनकी ratio निकाल लो. इसका फायदा ये होगा, you will also get the magnitude of कितने times one vector is bigger than the other vector. For example, इनकी ratio निकालेंगे, 9 और 3 की करते हैं. So 9 divided by 3, what do you get there? You get 3. Similarly, corresponding components here, y and y components, what do you get? You get 6/2. That also gives you 3. Again, since these two numbers are the same, that means these two vectors are parallel. Okay? That means these two vectors are parallel. In दोनों components को हमने क्या किया है? इनकी ratio निकाल ली. Now this ratio also tells you कि mn जो है वो कितने times बड़ा है AB के साथ. So that's what Duher and Aisha was were basically mentioning there. क्योंकि mn का जो एक component है x component 9 और जो AB का component है 3, इनकी ratio 3 आती है, दोनों में 3 आती है. X components की भी ratio 3 है, Y components की भी ratio 3 है. You see that mn is basically 3 times AB. The vector mn is 3 times AB. जो mn का magnitude है, वो AB के magnitude से 3 times बड़ा है. Okay, so that's what we get. अच्छा, now these are all the different concepts that you need to know of. ठीक है? अब इसमें there are multiple types of questions that you get. Okay, so now we're going to look at a few questions on vectors to try and understand how do we apply these things on different types of questions. Okay. अब ये parallel vectors के case के अंदर ना एक और चीज इसी के साथ related आती है, that is called collinear points. Collinear points, let me just explain that here as well. Go here. That's correct. You can do that, but you avoid dividing vectors by something. You generally avoid dividing vectors. अगर आप vectors की बात कर रहे होते, let's say AB vector and MN vector divide by 3. Although it's correct, इसमें कोई मसला नहीं है. It's better to write it like this: 1/3 times MN. And that's correct, right? You can do this. आप magnitude पे भी कर सकते हैं और आप vectors में भी कर सकते हैं. That's perfectly okay. That works, but it's better to write like this in the multiplication form. Okay, 1/3 multiplied by mn, that's better. That works as well at this level. Achha. Now, sometimes what you're given is, you've got, so let's actually do it this way. So you've got some points A, or let me give position vectors of these points. You've got 3 points. OA vector hai, and OA vector is, let's say, 2 and 4. You've got another vector, OB, position vector of B, and that is, let's say, 6 and 10. Let's say you've got another vector, that's OC, and that is, so I'm just making this up. I hope it works out correct. फिर एक और वेक्टर मेरे पास वो यहाँ पे, that's 14 and 22. I think it should work. 2, 4, 4, 4, 6, 6, 6, 6. Yeah. Okay. So let's say I've got 3 points. I've got 3 points, A, B, and C. A, B, and C. उनके पोजीशन वेक्टर ऊपर आपको बताया मैं. You have to prove that A, B, and C are collinear. We have to prove that these points are collinear. ये collinear है. Collinear क्या मतलब होता है? They all lie on the same line. They lie on the same straight line. They lie on the same straight line. That's what collinear points mean. कि वो एक same straight line के ऊपर lie करते. Okay. Now, how do you prove such something like this? Collinear का मतलब आप देखें तीनों points एक line पे lie करते हैं ना. Let's draw a random line here and mark these points because that will help us understand this. Let's say हमारे पास ये एक line है. अब तीनों एक line के ऊपर lie करते हैं. इसका मतलब क्या है कि जहां भी एक point A है, कहीं पे और कहीं पे एक point B होगा, इसी line के ऊपर कहीं और point एक C होगा. आपको ये prove करना है कि तीनों same line के ऊपर lie करते हैं. Okay. Now, what you understand from this is कि क्योंकि तीनों एक लाइन के ऊपर लाई करते हैं, अगर मैं कोई वेक्टर यहाँ पे देखूं, फॉर एग्जांपल वेक्टर ए बी क्या है? ए से बी पे जा रहे हैं. सिमिलरली वेक्टर बी सी भी देख सकता हूं, और सिमिलरली ए सी. ये तीनों वेक्टर्स जो है मेरे पास, इनकी सेम डायरेक्शन होगी बिकॉज ए बी सी एक ही लाइन के ऊपर लाई करते हैं ना. अब ये तीनों वेक्टर्स होंगे, उनकी डायरेक्शन जो है that is going to be exactly the same. AB वेक्टर भी उसी डायरेक्शन के अंदर होएगा, BC भी उसके अंदर होगा, AC भी उसके अंदर होगा. आपको अगर कोई भी चीज इस तरह से प्रूव करनी है that 3 points are collinear, that they lie on the same straight line, what are you going to do for that? आप इनमें से कोई भी दो लोगे. अब वो डिपेंड करेगा गिवन सिचुएशन के ऊपर, आपके पास कौन सा अवेलेबल है, राइट? यहाँ पे तो मैं आपको एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ. In actual questions that we will look at a few in some time. उसमें आपके पास इन तीनों में से ना कोई दो अवेलेबल होंगे, कोई भी दो अवेलेबल हो. आपके पास ए बी और ए सी हो, आपके पास बी सी और ए बी हो. आपने सिर्फ ये चीज प्रूव करनी है कि कोई भी दो वेक्टर्स इनमें से एक दूसरे के पैरेलल है, एंड दैट विल प्रूव दैट दे आर कोलिनियर. व्हाई? बिकॉज एक पॉइंट तो कॉमन है. अब कोई भी दो वेक्टर्स लेते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल ए बी और बी सी लेता हूं मैं. Let's use A, B and B, C. Let's say मेरे पास ये दो वेक्टर्स पड़े हुए थे, A, B and B, C, A, B and B, C. अगर मैं ये प्रूव कर देता हूँ कि दोनों की सेम डायरेक्शन है, इसका मतलब क्या है? A, B तो ये है वेक्टर, let's say like this, A, B वेक्टर. अब दूसरा वेक्टर B, C है, वो भी सेम डायरेक्शन के अंदर है, B, C. अब B और C तो कॉमन पॉइंट्स है ना. इसका मतलब B, C जो वेक्टर है, इसको मैं उठा के यहाँ पे रख सकता हूँ इस लाइन के साथ, तो उसकी डायरेक्शन उसी तरह होगी, सेम डायरेक्शन. ये D है और ये C है. That proves that these lie on the same straight line. क्योंकि एक पॉइंट कॉमन है इनके दरमियान में, एक पॉइंट कॉमन आ रहा है और उनकी सेम डायरेक्शन है. That will be enough to prove that these are parallel vectors. Now let me repeat. If you have to prove that any 3 points are collinear, what do you have to do for that? You take any combination like this. AB ले लें, BC ले लें, AC ले लें. इन तीनों में से कोई भी दो चूज कर लें जो आपके पास अवेलेबल हो, उनको पैरेलल प्रूव कर दें किसी तरह से. So let's find AB here. AB फिगर आउट करते हैं. AB क्या है? हमने अभी डिस्कस किया था पोजीशन वेक्टर्स की फॉर्म के अंदर. AB is equal to OB minus OA. What is that? That is 6 and 10 minus 2 and 4. What does that turn out to be? That's 4 and 6. Okay, let's figure out BC. BC क्या आएगा? OC minus OB. What is that? That is 14, 22 minus 6 and 10. And this turns out to be 8 and 12. Now you can prove that these two vectors are parallel. आप ये prove कर दें कि AB और BC they are parallel to each other. ठीक है. How do we prove that? We just discussed that a moment ago. This is AB here. Okay, this is BC here. हमने सिर्फ क्या करना है? इन दोनों को पैरेलल प्रूफ कर देना है. Corresponding points ले लें, 4 ले लें, यहाँ पे 8 ले लें. 8 over 4, what is that? That's 2. Let's take 6 here, 12 here, 12 over 6, what is that? That's 2. Since the ratios are the same, we say that these two vectors are parallel. AB and BC are parallel vectors. AB and BC are parallel vectors. Or we can also say AB is, or the other way around, BC vector is 2 times the vector AB, right? Because that's the ratio that we're getting. Since they are parallel, AB and C are collinear. Okay? उसकी reason क्या है? क्योंकि B दोनों में common है. B common है और AB और BC parallel है. That is enough to prove that these points are collinear. So if you had to prove that 3 points are collinear, this is what you do. Okay? Is this clear to everyone? Okay, so these are all the different concepts that you need to know. अब इसमें different types of questions आते हैं. कुछ grid वाले questions होते हैं, कुछ आपके पास एक figure बनी होती है, वो करने होते हैं. वो सबसे ज्यादा तो figure वाले मुश्किल होते हैं. But let's quickly do some of those questions. Okay? Now before we end, we have to apply these concepts on a few questions. Okay? So let me upload a few here. So let's start with a few simple ones, which we will do very quickly. Then we will gradually increase the difficulty level of it. So let's say you've got this. You've got two vectors A and B. Aapne express A plus 2B aapne express karna as a column vector. What do? You've got 3 and minus 4 plus 2 times B. That's 2 into 1, 7. 1 minus 1, 7. What do you get from this? You get 3 minus 4 plus minus 2 and 14. And that gives you 3 plus minus 2, which is 1, 3 minus 2. And you get minus 4 plus 14, which is 10. So it turns out to be 1 and 10. Okay, so that's really straightforward. Achha. Let's move on. Let's do the next part of this. So then it says, find the magnitude of A. Find the magnitude of A. Let's go back there. A kya tha? 3 and minus 4. A was 3 and minus 4. The vector A is 3 minus 4. Okay, इसका magnitude figure out करना है. Magnitude कैसे find करते हैं? Square root of 3 square plus minus 4 का square. You can remember उसको brackets में लिखेंगे ताकि square उसको square कर दे. And that turns out to be 5. Right? 25 आएगा, उसको square root लेंगे, 5 आ जाएगा. So the magnitude is 5. Very good. So that's what we get. ठीक है? So कुछ तो इस तरह के simple questions होते हैं. Okay? You will just have to apply the basic concepts. And then you have the modulus of B divided by modulus of A. That's equal to square root of n, where n is an integer. Find the value of n. Okay? Let's do that. Modulus of B. अच्छा, modulus of B निकाल लेते हैं पहले. A का modulus तो है हमारे पास पहले से. B का modulus नहीं है. Let's find that as well. So B क्या था? Go back and figure out. B was minus 1 and 7. Okay, so B was minus 1 and 7. So what do you get here? B का magnitude, that is minus 1 का square plus 7 का square. That is square root of 50. ठीक है? 1 plus 49, that's 50, square root of 50. इसको decimals में नहीं convert करें यहाँ पे, because यहाँ पे square root of n रखा हुआ ना दूसरी side के ऊपर, n integer है, तो we would avoid using decimals here because वो फिर वापस जब जाएंगे, अगर आप 7.07 इसको लिख देते हो, अब क्योंकि वो approximate number आपने use किया होगा, तो वो exact तो नहीं है 7.07, it's an approximate number. तो तब जब वापस उसको square करोगे, तो that will cause you problem, वो exact नहीं आएगा, right? So you should keep it as this, इसको square करना आपने दोबारा. So that's what we have. Square root of A, modulus of A, in fact modulus of B divided by modulus of A, that is equal to square root of n. ये इसने दिया हुआ था वहाँ पे. हमने क्या करना है, इसके अंदर values input करनी है सिर्फ. Modulus of B क्या है? Square root of 50. Modulus of A क्या था? 5. That's equal to square root of n. n कैसे आएगा? We just square both sides. दोनों sides को square कर लें. Square root of 50 का square क्या होएगा? Square कर लें दोनों sides को. Square root of 50 का square is just 50. 5 का square is 25. n is equal to 50 over 25, which turns out to be 2. So that's what you get right there. Okay? So these are, so that's one type of question that you get. That's fairly straightforward. आपको सिर्फ simple concepts apply करने होते हैं, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and the magnitude. Okay. Then you also have something like this. You have questions using the grid. You've got some grid there. Walaikum assalam, Laiba. You're late today. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay. Now, sometimes you have to use a grid like this to, figure some things out. Okay, all right. Okay, now you have 3 vectors given. You've got vector F, you've got vector G, and you've got vector H. Okay, 3 vectors आपके पास. Now the vector F and the point A are shown on the grid. Vector F and the point A, they are shown on the grid. आपको grid में नजर आ रहे हैं. Vector F है 3 2 लिखा हुआ था ना. That means 3 units to the right, 3 units right, and then 2 units up. You can see that there. That's vector F. You've got G इसी तरह से. G क्या होगा? 4 units right, then 1 unit up. Right? कहीं भी आप ड्रॉ कर सकते हैं वेक्टर्स में. तो सिर्फ वो मैटर करता है ना, आप स्टार्ट से एंड तक कितना जा रहे हो, right and up or left or down, whatever that is. और B vector, H vector आपको क्या है? -1 and 2. Now, what you're given is the vector F and the point are given on the grid, mark and label. The point B mark करना है आपको. Then the vector AB is F plus G. Okay, लेते हैं F plus G को evaluate कर लेते हैं. F plus G है क्या? So F plus G, F क्या है? F is 3 and 3 and 2. G is 4 and 1. What do you get from that? You get 7 and 3. ठीक है, इसका मतलब क्या है कि जो AB vector है ना, that is 7 and 3, 7 units horizontally and 3 units vertically. So आप A पे जाओगे, A पे जाके देखोगे, अच्छा 7 units right कितने बनते हैं? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. You're right here. When you move 7 units to the right, and you go 3 units up from that, 1 2 3, point B is going to be here. That's your point B, because you're going 7 units right and then 3 units up. So that's the point AB. That's the point B, in fact. I don't know, B mark the mark right here. Okay. Now let's look at the next part of this. So iske baad it says, let me actually just write it down here. Can we see the page? We don't have to move to the next page. Iske baad, it basically asks you to find the mark and label. Just the mark and label ka hai, the point C when AC, vector AC is equal to -2 times H. उसने AC दिया हुआ है, this is -2H. आपने point C mark करना है, ठीक है? C mark करना है when AC is given to be -2H. Okay, let's find AC. AC क्या होएगा? -2 multiplied by H. H is -1 2. ठीक है? What do you get from that? You get 4. Sorry, you get 2 and -4. इसका क्या मतलब? A से start करके you have to go 2 units right. X component 2 है, you go 2 units right, and then you go 4 units down. So reach this point here. That's the point C. ये आपका point C up. Okay. Now finally, you have to mark and label another thing. And the third part of this, third part में वो कहता है the point D. That's very similar as well. So आपने point D mark करना है when AD is 2F minus 3G. Okay. Again, what we have to do is we just evaluate that thing. 2F minus 3G क्या आएगा? That's 2 into 3 2 minus 3 into 4 1. We can just evaluate this and see what that turns out to be. So that's 6 minus 12 and 4 minus 3, and that is -6 and 1. So A se start karke, you have to go 6 units left. That's here, and then 1 unit up. that's right here. ये आपके पास आ गया point, आपने mark कर दिए तीनों points B, C, and D. Right. So this is another type of question that comes, and you have to use a grid to do something. Now let's do another question like this. Let me move to the figure ones. थोड़े ज़्यादा tricky होते हैं. एक तीसरी type वो होती है. So tomorrow, inshallah, we will be doing more practice questions on this from past papers. But that's in another group. So vectors की practice हम करेंगे inshallah कल on more past paper questions. So we've discussed the key concepts needed today. Now we'll do more practice in this. Let me just upload the next one. Achha, let's think about this. It's sort of stretched the grid. It's not like horizontal and vertical like before. अब यहाँ पे इसने क्या कहा हुआ है? The diagram shows the points O and R and the vectors A and B. So you've got some vector A here, you've got some vector B here. Given that OP is equal to 2 times A, mark and label the position of P on the grid. It's kind of दो तरीके होते हैं करने के. Either you can use you do it graphically. Graphically आप देख लें कि अच्छा OP is equal to 2 times A, right? लेकिन फिर आप सिंपल वाले केसेस तो इस तरह के कर लेंगे आराम से. लेकिन मसला होता है फिर कभी-कभी थोड़ा सा ज्यादा कॉम्प्लेक्स हो जाए उसको थोड़ा सा डील करना मुश्किल हो जाता है. So you can do everything graphically basically. आप कर सकते हैं. So if you learned it that way, that's fine. But that's a bit more error prone. या फिर कुछ लोगों को complicated लगता है. I would prefer to do that, but it really depends on your own comfort. जो दूसरा method है, it's slightly lengthy, but it reduces the chances of any errors. So let me explain what you have to do here. आपके पास जो दो वेक्टर्स दिए हुए ना A और B, आप इनको क्या कर लो, इनको रिप्रेजेंट कर लो कंपोनेंट फॉर्म के अंदर. ठीक है? What I'm going to do is I'm going to consider this as my x component. ये जो डायरेक्शन है, this is my x component, and this is my y component, the y direction. ठीक है? तो मैं क्या करता हूँ, मैं A और B वेक्टर्स को ना मार्क कर लेता हूँ. यहाँ पे लिख लेता हूँ. The vector A is how many units on the x-axis? -1. ऊपर कुछ आ रहा है ना? So -1 on the x component. What about the y component? We're going 2 units down. O से start करें ना? O से start करते हुए एक left पे जा रहे हैं. Then we're going 2 units down. 1 left, 2 down. So that's -1 and -2. ये vector आपके पास ये आ गया. Similarly, B. B क्या होएगा? It's 1 and 2 units to the right. That's 2 here. Vertically कोई movement नहीं है. Y-axis के ऊपर, there's no movement vertically, सिर्फ horizontal movement है. That's going to be 0. ठीक है? So now you can basically use these vectors A and B to do all of these parts. 2A. 2A का क्या मतलब है? That's 2 into -1 and -2. That's -2 and -4. Starting from the origin, आप क्या करोगे? 2 units left जाओगे. 1, 2. यहाँ पे पहुंच गए, then 4 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what you get. This is your point B. ठीक है? दूसरा तरीका ऑफ कोर्स क्या था? You take a ruler, उससे मल्टीप्लाई करना था. इसको इतना था, इसको एक्सटेंड कर दिया 2 के साथ. You get here. So that's your point B. अच्छा, P तो आसान था. What about Q now? Given that OQ is equal to 2B minus A, mark and label the position of Q on the grid. Again, graphically करना होता आप क्या करते हैं? You would go on the figure. 2B, B क्या है? O से start किया. ये 1 टाइम यहाँ पर आ गए. एक और दफा उधर चले गए. यहाँ पर आ गए. And then it's -A. A की डायरेक्शन क्या थी? एक डायरेक्शन नीचे की तरफ थी. ये वो माइनस है, तो उतना ऊपर से ले जाओगे. Right? That's going to be here. That's something that some people find a bit harder. So this is easier. What you do is आप क्या करें, वेक्टर्स आपने प्रेजेंट कर लिया यहाँ पे ऑलरेडी. आपको सिर्फ क्या करना है, OQ फाइंड कर लेना. What is OQ? Let's figure that out. 2B minus 2A, 2B minus A, sorry. So 2 into 2, 0 minus A, where is that? That's -1 and -2. And you can see what that turns out to be. This is going to be 4 plus 1, which is 5, and 0 plus 2, which is 2. So this is what you have to plot there. Origin say 5 units right. So 5 units right. Yeah, 5 units right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 units up. 1, 2. That's going to be here. ये आपका point आ गया. This is your point Q. ये आपने Q mark कर दिया. Okay. All right. Now the last part specifically is much easier if you use this method here. Graphically इसमें थोड़ा सा आपको वो A की डायरेक्शन में एक लाइन बनानी पड़ेगी, B की लाइन में लाइन बनानी पड़ेगी, फिर आपको देखना उसको कहाँ पे इंटरसेक्ट करते हैं. So again, if you want to do that, that's perfectly okay. If you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But यहाँ पे मैं क्या करूँगा? I've got OR in terms of A and B. OR in terms of A and B, ये मैंने figure out कर. अच्छा. Now let's look at the figure. Figure में जाके देखते हैं O से R पे हम कैसे पहुँच रहे हैं. O से R पे हम कैसे पहुँच रहे हैं? I go 1 unit here, and then another unit here, and then another unit here. That's 3 units to the left. OR vector मेरा बनता क्या है वैसे? OR vector, it's basically 1, 2, 3 units to the left. That's minus 3. And then 2 units up, 1, 2. So that's 2 here. OR vector is basically minus 3 and 2, using that convention that we're using here. So OR is minus 3 and 2. So OR मेरे पास आ गया minus 3 and 2. अच्छा वो कह रहा है इसको आपने रिप्रेजेंट करना है A और B की टर्म्स में. अब A और B की टर्म्स में रिप्रेजेंट करने का क्या मतलब है? You have something multiplied by A plus minus something multiplied by B. That's what it's asking you for, right? Something multiplied by A plus something multiplied by B. That's what you have to do. अब ये क्या है? यहाँ पे कुछ भी assume कर लें इसको. Let's say M times A plus N times B. ठीक है. अब ये M और N की वैल्यूज आपको फिगर आउट करनी है कि वो हमारे पास क्या होंगी. हम A और B को किससे मल्टीप्लाई कर रहे होंगे. ठीक है. आपको सिर्फ क्या करना है. OR क्या है? OR is minus 3, 2. उसको यहाँ पे लिखा M into A, M into A, which is minus 1 and minus 2, plus N times B, that's 2 and 0. यहाँ सबके पास क्या होगा? You get minus 3, 2, that's equal to minus M plus 2n, and you get minus 2m plus just 0, so that's just minus 2m. अब यहाँ से what you get is, you basically get two things, two equations. So you get minus 3 equal to minus m plus 2n. ठीक है, क्योंकि ऊपर वाला कंपोनेंट x कंपोनेंट इस x कंपोनेंट के इक्वल हो गया. इस तरह से ये 2 है, this should be equal to minus 2m. So 2 is equal to minus 2m. That was दो equations आ गई. ठीक है. Yes, so it becomes simultaneous equations exactly. So generally क्या होता है इसमें ना, एक मोस्टली जब भी डील करते हो इस तरह की प्रॉब्लम से ना, एक जीरो आ रहा होता है. So it doesn't become very lengthy in this case. एक आपके पास डायरेक्टली वैल्यू आ जाती है. So it's simultaneous equations. Yes, you get two equations. You've got one equation here, you've got another equation here. You just solve them for the values of m and n, and you find that expression here. So यहाँ पे for instance minus 2m is equal to 2. यहाँ से कुछ डायरेक्टली आ जाएगा m is equal to minus 1. इस वैल्यू को जाके ऊपर वाली इक्वेशन में इनपुट कर दो. You get minus 3 equals minus into minus 1 plus 2n, and you get n equal to, so this is 2n equal to minus 2. No, so this is 1, this is also minus 4. n की वैल्यू आपके पास आ जाएगी minus 2. n की वैल्यू minus 2 आ गई, n की वैल्यू minus 1 आ गई. So you say your OR is basically what? OR is minus 1a, or just minus a, plus nb. n की जगह क्या है? 2 है, so that's 2b. That is your vector OR. Okay, this is how you would do it. Chaminal is asking, can we do RP equals OP minus OR? Yes, you can do that. So you can say RP. Okay, let me do that. So RP here, that is equal to OP minus OR. Okay, ठीक है. So how do you use this then? आपको फाइंड क्या करना है? OR फाइंड करना है. OR आपको फिगर आउट करना है. ओके, OR आपको फिगर आउट करना है. सेट बना लेते हैं. आपको ये दोनों चीजें चाहिए, which are OP and RP. So you have OP in terms of you have OP in terms of A already, so that's 2A. That's fine. So that will work as well. What about RP? RP को आप कैसे represent करोगे AB की terms में? So you can write it like that. Yes, that's correct. This equation is correct, but it would not help because RP को आप इस तरह से A और B की terms में represent करेंगे, फिर उसके लिए आपको ये सारा process फिर से करना पड़ेगा, right? So you have to do that anyway. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. अच्छा, दूसरा मैं आपको graphically बता देता हूँ कैसे करना है. So it's your choice then, whichever method you prefer. So this is how you would do it if you had to do it algebraically like this. Graphically, पता है इसको क्या करते हैं, which for some reason, I don't know, some students find it difficult. So if you're not one of them, of course, it's going to be quicker. So this is what you do. आपने क्या करना है, O से एक दो पॉइंट्स आपके पास OR. You want to find OR vector. So one point is O and the other point is R. These points are what are relevant for you. Okay. अब ये A B vectors हैं, एक A vector है, एक B vector. What you're going to do is एक पॉइंट से आपने A वेक्टर की डायरेक्शन में लाइन बना देनी है और दूसरे पॉइंट से आपने B वेक्टर की डायरेक्शन में लाइन बना देनी है. Now it doesn't matter which vector you put which point to. For example, R से start करते हैं. R से make one line in the direction of either B or A. Let's say I'm B की डायरेक्शन बना लेते हैं. B की डायरेक्शन में I'm going to make a line from starting from R. R से start करके I'm making a line in the direction of B. Now this is the line. B के डायरेक्शन के अंदर मैंने B के पैरेलल एक लाइन बना दी. ठीक है. अच्छा, what do I do then? I make a similar line from O, लेकिन B से मैंने B वाली लाइन तो R पे बना दी है, R से मैंने B के पैरेलल लाइन बना दी है. अब मैं क्या करूंगा, दूसरे पॉइंट से that's O से मैं A की डायरेक्शन में एक लाइन बना देता हूँ, पैरेलल टू A. Make a line parallel to A starting from O. दोनों साइड से बना सकते हैं. अच्छा, ये जरूरी नहीं है कि आप R से स्टार्ट करना है, R उसके अंदर आ जाए, बेशक आप दोनों साइड से इसको एक्सटेंड करते हैं. So sometimes you also have to go the other way around. आपने R से इस डायरेक्शन के अंदर लाइन बना दी, तो दोनों साइड से एक्सटेंड भी कर सकते हैं ना. यहाँ आपको नजर आ रहा है इस डायरेक्शन के अंदर जाना है. R से आपको राइट पे आना था, तो इसलिए मैंने इस डायरेक्शन में बना दी. O से आपको ऊपर जाना है बेसिकली, तो O से A की डायरेक्शन में कैसे लाइन बनेगी? It will be like this. You started O, A के parallel line, A की डायरेक्शन में. That's going to look like this. ये आपने लाइन यहाँ पे बना दी. ठीक है. Now where do these lines intersect? These lines intersect at this point. यहाँ पे intersect कर रहे हैं इस point के ऊपर. ठीक है. अब आप ये देख लें, ये रेड वाला पार्ट A की टर्म्स में कैसे लिख सकते हैं. अगर नीचे वाला पार्ट was A, if this was A, what is the other way around? तो यहाँ पे जा रहे हैं उतना ही डिस्टेंस, वो कितना आएगा? That will be minus A. Okay, that will be minus A. अब हॉरिजॉन्टली देखते हैं, इस डायरेक्शन के अंदर आप कितने यूनिट जा रहे हैं? 1 2 3 4 यूनिट्स लेफ्ट पे जा रहे हैं. B के लिए आप क्या कर रहे थे? Going 1 2 यूनिट्स राइट. तो आप बेसिकली उल्टा जा रहे हो B की डायरेक्शन में. This is minus B and then another minus B. तो टोटल कितना हो गया? minus 2B. So this whole thing here becomes minus 2B. So then you say the vector OR is therefore going to be minus A minus 2B. So you can write it directly like that. Now this method is shorter, it's quicker, but it requires more thinking. The other one is just a standard thing. You just write it down like that. आपको पता है कि OR आपने निकाल लिया हुआ है. That was minus 5 and something, minus 5 or क्या था वो? 1 2 3 4 से 1 2 3 as 3, it was 3 minus 3 and 2 ओवर आपने निकाल लिया हुआ था तो आपने बस इसके इक्वल कर दिया MA plus NB के लिए, right? Almost no thinking needed there. बस M और A की values find कर ले वहां से simultaneously solve कर, but it's a bit longer, it's going to take much more time. ये हमें सोचना नहीं पड़ेगा, पहले इस वाले में graphically सोचना पड़ेगा, but it's quicker, right? So it's your choice now, whatever you prefer. Okay, any questions on this? Is this clear? Any problems here? Any questions? Any questions here? Okay, now let's come to the most feared part of vectors, and that's when you have those diagrams and you have to, prove something that's parallel, find some vectors. So I'm going to do one big question on that, okay? And that will cover a number of different concepts, okay? So I'm going to start with that. So let me just copy this here. Just give me a few seconds. All right, good. Let's have a look at this. So we've got this figure. Now this is another type of question that comes where you have some figure. Of course, vectors evaluate करने होते हैं, कुछ parallel vectors का concept आ जाता है दिमाग में, कुछ collinear points आ जाते हैं. So what are you doing? How do you deal with problems like these? So you have this diagram that's ABCD. It's a parallelogram. ABCD is a parallelogram. That means the opposite sides have equal lengths and they're parallel to each other. And that's what a parallelogram means. Now, you have some further information given. P is the midpoint of BC. So P comes right in the middle of B and C. AB is equal to P and AD is equal to Q. AD is equal to Q. ठीक है, ये आपको information दी हुई है. You have to express DP in terms of P and Q. अच्छा, इसको vectors find किस तरह करने होते हैं? What you do is, you see D is the starting point. D से start करने आपको और P पे जाना है. D से start करना है, and you have to reach P. BP. You have to find a path on your figure on which you know some vectors. Find any path on the figure जिस पे आपको vectors पता हो. So for example, D से P पे आप कैसे जा सकते हो? You can either go from D to C and then you go C to P. That's one possibility. You could say DCA में मिल जाए किसी तरह से, उसमें मैं add कर दूंगा CP and that will give me DP. That's one possibility. And there are always going to be multiple parts. Not always, but most of the times you'll have multiple possibilities. Another possibility could be you go from D to A, right? And then you go from A to B. Then you go from B to P. And that's also perfectly okay. And that will give you the same result. DA, AB, and BP. You have vectors on that path. Us pe aap vectors ko add kar lein, so that's DA plus AB plus BP. So you've got to find a path that takes you from that starting point to that end point. Okay? So now, of course, if you were more adventurous, you could say, I'll go here, I'll go from D to Q, and then go from Q to A, and then go from A to B, and then go from B to B. You could do that as well. If you have all the vectors there, that's also perfectly okay. So you might not be able to find that. Essentially, the idea is you find a path that you have some information on. Okay? Achha. So let's do it. We can go from D to C. Let's do it this way. D से C पे चले गए. Now we know that this vector is P. अगर ये vector P है, ABCD is a parallelogram, तो ये vector भी P होना चाहिए. We can say this is BC plus CP. And then we go from C to P. Okay. Now, how do you find CP? minus 3q over 2 plus p, not exactly here. So there's one thing wrong there. Acha, so D से C पे गए. What do we get? That is P. Okay. Now the problem is, how do we find CP? CP कैसे निकालेंगे? अब ये AD क्या था? AD was Q. अगर AD Q है, तो ये क्या होना चाहिए? BC. BC should be Q as well. ये भी Q है पूरा, है ना? अगर ये पूरा Q है, what is half of that? Half of that is Q over 2. So this part here is Q over 2. अगर ये Q over 2 है, तो PC भी Q over 2 है ना? ये PC भी Q over 2 है. आपको क्या चाहिए? आपको इसके ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन चाहिए. आप PC नहीं चाहिए आपको CP चाहिए. So what you have to do is you just use the negative of that. So that's P plus minus Q over 2. And that gives you P minus Q over 2. Exactly. So that's what you get. P minus Q over 2. Okay? So that's the vector dP. It generally helps कि आपके पास ना जो सारे vectors हो आप लिख लें उसको पहले ना figure के अंदर. This is P here, you know that. This is Q, this whole thing. अभी क्योंकि आपको पता था P was the midpoint, that's why this is Q over 2, and this part is also Q over 2. You can write those numbers on the diagram first, और फिर आप उसको सब वहाँ से लेके चल सकते हो. अच्छा, then we have DQ. Start at D and end at Q. DQ चाहिए आपको. So now let's see what information you have for that. D से हमें Q बताना है. So do we have any information? The diagram ABC is a parallelogram. P is the midpoint of BC. P is the midpoint of BC. Or AB is equal to P. AD is equal to Q. और हमें DQ figure out करना है in terms of P and Q. Now, how can we start at this point that is D and reach Q? D से Q पे हम कैसे जा सकते हैं? इसने आपको एक रेशियो दी हुई है. DQ ratio QP is 1:2. Okay. Now this is where that is going to come into play. Now let's think of how we're going to make use of these ratios. Ratios को किस तरह से use करेंगे? यहाँ पे आपको साइड बना के बताता हूँ. So you see, this is D and this is P and this is some point here in the middle that is Q. उसने आपको क्या कहा है? उसने आपको कहा है कि जो total length है ना, the total length is no sorry, उसने कहा कि DQ, this part is 1. If this part was 1, then QP part, the upper part would be 2. That's what it's saying. अगर ये नीचे वाला part 1 होता तो ऊपर वाला part 2 है. Right? That's the ratio that you're given here. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? इसके total आप 3 parts कर लें. DP के आप 3 parts कर लें. DP के आपके पास total 3 parts हैं. उन 3 parts में से 2 parts PQ हैं और एक part PQ है. अब क्योंकि आपको DP मिल गया है, DP मिल गया है ना, DP मिल गया है, आप क्या कह सकते हो? DQ figure out करना है. DQ अगर 1 है, DP 3 है ना? So we can either say DQ is equal to 1/3 DP, या तो आप इसको इस तरह से कह सकते हो, or as Laiba is saying, you can say DP is 3 times DQ. Right? So that's the same thing. आप 3 दूसरी साइड पे ले जाएंगे, डिवाइड कर दें वहां पे, यहां से आपको मिल जाएगा DQ. Right? So essentially what you have is but DQ equal to 1/3 times DP. वो जो DP पूरी लेंथ थी उसका 1/3 times हमने कर दिया and that will give us this. ठीक है? अब DP तो हमने पिछले पार्ट में फिगर आउट किया है. That was P minus Q over 2. उसको बस 1/3 से मल्टीप्लाई कर देते हैं. 1/3 into P minus Q over 2 and that gives you 1/3 P minus 3Q over 2. Okay? Sorry, that's wrong. That's Q over 6. Sorry, so 1 over minus 1/6 Q. Yeah, so that's what you get. Okay, 1/3 P minus 1/6 times Q. So yes, Laiba, that was correct. You get 1/3 P minus 1/6 Q. Is this clear to everyone? Any questions on this? Any problems with this? Okay, now let's do the next part. So उसके बाद वो क्या कहता है in part C? Okay, express AQ in terms of P and Q, giving your answer in its simplest form. AQ आपने represent करना है P और Q के terms में. AQ कहाँ पर है? फिर में देखना पड़ेगा. अच्छा, it's a problem कि आपको slide में जाना वापस shift करनी पड़ेगी यहाँ पे. But let's deal with it. AQ, that's pretty straightforward. AQ, A से Q पे जाना है. अब A से Q पे you already have AD and you already have DQ. दोनों हैं आपके पास, इन दोनों को ऐड कर दें. Right? AD plus DQ. You go this way and then you go this way. Okay, so that is AD plus DQ. We already found AD earlier. So AD was, what was that? That was P over 3 minus Q over 6 plus DQ. DQ was given to be Q. DQ आपका Q है. Sorry, AD आपका Q है. So do the other way around. Sorry. So it's the other way around there. Write that again. This is AD plus DQ. AD आपको पता था that was Q और DQ आपको पता था that was P over 3 minus Q over 6. ठीक है, इसको evaluate कर लें. Turns out to be P over 3 minus that plus 5Q over 6. ठीक है, इसको आप calculator से evaluate कर लें ताकि there is less chance of error. तो ये आपका 1Q है या आपके पास minus 1 over 6Q है. Just evaluate this from your calculator if you're not good with mental maths. क्योंकि आपने paper 2 देना है, तो paper 2 के लिए you just do this directly on your calculator. 1 minus 1 over 6, that turns out to be 5 over 6. That's 5 over 6 here. Okay, so that's correct. That's what we get. So then it says R is the midpoint on BC. So now this is the difficult type of question. जो आपके पास last 2 parts. अब ये पहले वाले सारे parts ना most of you are able to do, I assume. ये मसला आता है ये आखिरी वाले important parts के ऊपर जहाँ पे parallel वाली चीजें आ जाती हैं. So that's where most people get it wrong. So let's see what we do in this case. R is the midpoint on BC, produced such that BR vector is equal to K times BP vector. Okay, let's think about this. Laiba, you can actually do that to verify your answers, but you have to show your working. You have to show your working, right? आपको working show करनी होती है, तो वो आपको दिखाना होगा. So अगर आप transformations की बात कर रहे हो, yes, वहाँ पे if you're doing something like this, for example, if you have 1, 2, 5, 7, because transformation में आपको working जरूरी नहीं होती. Transformations में तो आप बस graph पे draw करना होता है. Examiner doesn't really care कि आपने वो किस तरह, क्योंकि most people figure it out graphically as well. So it's not required to show working. So if you're using matrices, you can have this 5, 7, 8, 6, 2, 5. If you are saying to use your calculator for evaluating this, then yeah, sure, go ahead with it. You can do that. Vector to transformation matrix करनी करनी होते वैसे. So let's say it was like this: 1 and 0, 0 minus 1. Let's say you had to evaluate this from your calculator. Go ahead with it. आप directly यहाँ पे लिख लें values, and that's perfectly okay. और उनको जाके plot कर दें. इसमें आपको working show करने की जरूरत नहीं है. अगर वो matrices का question होता, वहाँ पे आपको multiplication करनी होती, then you cannot use calculator for that for getting the answer. आपको working show करनी है verification के लिए, you can use the calculator. अगर matrices वाला question हो, उसमें आपको working show करना जरूरी होगा. Okay? अच्छा. Vectors contain 1 or 2 marks in transformations. Vectors, not too sure what you mean by that. Shayan, I'm sorry, मुझे आपका question समझ नहीं आया. Okay. Shahir, you want to say something? Shahir, I've just unmuted you. You want to say something? I just joined. I thought it was the others. Shahir, okay, all right. अच्छा, let's complete this. शायन अगर आप अपना word अपना question rephrase कर दें, मुझे आप शायद कुछ statement कह रहे थे, that was not a question probably. So let's look at this. Part D. R is the point on BC produced such that BR is equal to K times BP. Okay, now what I actually want to do is I want to have that in front of me, the figure. So what I can do for that is copy that figure here somehow. I'm a figure पे यहाँ पे copy करने लगा. Just give me a few seconds. We have that figure in front here. Okay, so this is the diagram that we have. Sure, it's here. Okay, now R is the point on BC, so this is the line BC. When it's produced further, you get this point R here on the other side. And you're given BR is equal to K times BP. BR is equal to K times this BP. Okay, you have to express AR in terms of P and Q and K. Okay, AR. So basically, you have to start at A and you end at R. Okay, so let's look at this. AR को कैसे represent कर सकते हैं? We can say AR is the same thing as saying we go from A to B, A से B पे चले गए, and then we go from B to R. ठीक है? A से B पे चले गए, then we go from B to R. अच्छा, AB तो हमें पता है, that's just P. So AB is just P. Okay, so this is just P. AB is just P. What about BR? BR is K times BP. K times BP. So you can say this is K times BP. अब BP क्या है? If this is Q, we already figured that out before. P is the midpoint of BC. BP क्या होएगा? BP is Q over 2. ठीक है? तो K into Q over 2, you get P plus K into Q over 2. That is what you get. ठीक है? P plus that's P plus Q. यहाँ पे Q भी आ रहा है, BR. Let me just have a look at that again. Is K times BP. BR is K times BP. So BP हमारे पास क्या है? That's just Q. Am I writing something wrong here? K over 2 Q. Why do you have to add Q there? I don't understand. Laiba? Am I missing something here? It's just P plus K over 2 times Q. Shan is saying the same thing. That's why I just got confused. Two people getting the same result. That's not what it says, right? It says BR is equal to K times BP. That's what it says. It says BR is K times BP, right? What do we have here? We've got AB plus BR, right? AB and BR. AB तो P आ गया हमारे पास. BR क्या होएगा? BR is just K times BP, right? K times BP. K into BP. So BP की जगह क्या है? BP हमें पता है Q over 2 है. That's just, you know, K over 2, K into Q over 2. That's what you have. Exactly. So that's, yeah. So P plus KQ over 2. That's what you get. Okay. अच्छा, अब ये हमारे पास आ गया. Now let's look at the last part of this. Given that A, Q, and R lie on a straight line, given that they lie on a straight line, find the value of Q. अब इसकी एक और wording हो सकती थी कि they are collinear, right? वो भी आप अक्सर देखते हो. Given that these points are collinear, इसका मतलब वो same point lie करते हैं. या वो कुछ पैरेलल वेक्टर्स कह देता, दो वेक्टर्स पैरेलल हैं उसको यूज करके कुछ करें. These are all the same things, right? अब given this information, you have to find the value of k. अब मैं आपको क्या बताया था? A, Q and R the line with same straight line. So A, Q and R the line with same straight line. यानी अगर मैं इसको extend कर दूं तो इस तरह से, तो they are all in the same straight line, right? वो एक ही लाइन के ऊपर lie करते हैं. अब इन तीनों को यूज करके which three vectors do I have? I've got AQ, I've got QR and I've got AR. ये तीन वेक्टर्स मेरे पास इन तीन पॉइंट से आ सकते हैं, राइट? AQ आ सकता है, QR आ सकता है, या वो पूरा वेक्टर AR आ सकता है. इन तीनों में से कोई भी दो पॉइंट्स, कोई भी दो वेक्टर्स लें, दे शुड बी पैरेलल. AQ की भी वही डायरेक्शन है, QR की भी वही डायरेक्शन है, AR की भी वही डायरेक्शन है, क्योंकि उसने कहा हुआ है आपको दे lie on the same straight line. Since they lie on the same straight line, that means these are all parallel. These are all parallel. Or parallel नहीं तो आप कह सकते हैं they have the same direction. They have the same direction. बिल्कुल एक ही लाइन पे lie कर रहे हैं, they have the same direction. अब आपने क्या करना है? You take two of these vectors that you know of. AQ पता है आपको? AQ इसने हमसे पहले figure out कराया है. That's here. P over 3 plus 5Q over 2. What about QR? QR हमें नहीं पता. QR हमें नहीं पता. At this point हमें नहीं पता. निकालना हो तो निकाल सकते हैं, लेकिन हमें नहीं पता तो we'll try to reduce our working. AR हमें पता है, AR हमें पता है. So we know AQ, we know AR. So what we say is we use this thing AR and AQ. They are parallel. They are parallel vectors. AR क्या था? AR was P plus K over 2Q. So P plus K over 2 times Q. और AQ को नीचे लिख लूं अगर मैं, तो that might be easier. So let me write AQ here. AQ हमारे पास क्या है ऊपर? That was 1 over 3 times P plus 5 over 6 times Q. ठीक है? Now, since these are parallel vectors, मैंने आपको क्या कहा था? Corresponding components की ratio equal होनी चाहिए. Corresponding components की ratios equal होनी चाहिए. ठीक है? Now, again you can do it both ways. मैं एक तरीका इसमें क्या है? यहाँ पे P के साथ ऊपर कुछ भी नहीं लिखा हुआ ना, यहाँ पे 1 लिख लो. This is 1, let's say. 1P plus K over 2Q. That means ये 1 और ये जो 1 over 3 की रेशियो है, ऊपर वाले 1 और नीचे वाले 1 over 3 की जो रेशियो है, that should be the same ratio here, K over 2 और 5 over 6. Is that okay? इन दोनों के ratios equal होनी चाहिए. That means you can have something like this. अब वो रेशियो फॉर्म में लिख के उसको क्रॉस मल्टीप्लिकेशन करना चाहते हो वो भी कर सकते हो, या उसको डिवाइड करना चाहते हो वो भी कर सकते हो. So what you get here is, किसी को भी किसी में डिवाइड कर दें, so अब एक फॉर्म, पॉसिबल फॉर्म ये हो सकती थी 1 divided by 1 over 3. This should be equal to K over 2 divided by 5 over 6. So cross multiply कर लें and you get the value of K there. So calculator से directly कर सकते हैं evaluate, या इस तरह भी कर सकते हैं. So that's what you get. यहाँ पे इसको simplify कर लें, क्या हो जाएगा? K की वैल्यू क्या आ जाएगी? 5 over 6 इधर आ गया, 1 over 3 उधर चला गया. So we have 5 over 6 equal to K over 2 into 1 over 3. Let's do the calculation. ये नीचे 6 आगे तो multiply और K की वैल्यू हमारे पास 5 आ जाती है वहां से. Exactly. So K turns out to be 5. ठीक है? अपने के पास जो ऑलरेडी दो वेक्टर्स हैं उनको आपने यूज किया, because we know all of these three vectors are parallel. उनमें से कोई भी दो वेक्टर्स वो निकाले जिनका आपको पता था, उनकी रेशियोज इक्वेट कर दो, उनके कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग कंपोनेंट्स की रेशियोज इक्वेट कर दो. You get the value of K from there. ठीक है? इसका एक और तरीका भी होता है, but that's a bit more difficult, so I'll not go into that. So this is what you get here. K की वैल्यू आपके पास 5 आ जाती है. Okay, any questions on this? Any questions on this? Any problems, anyone? Okay, very good. Now, so that's all that we have to do today.